It's almost 7 years since Loïc Bizol moved to Montreal to start a career as a researcher specializing in homosexuality in the Catholic Church.
I've been interested in the religious history of Quebec, and I'm in the process of finishing my thesis. I've submitted it. It's a really great achievement.
But the 30-year-old's life in Canada now hangs in the balance. At the end of October, Quebec unceremoniously suspended the immigration program which underpins his permanent residency in the country.
So here is my study visa. It's always a long and costly process.
With a student loan to repay and research to keep up with, he can at least rest easy knowing he can stay in the province with a temporary visa once his degree is validated. But he still feels that, despite his best efforts, he's being kept in a precarious position by provincial authorities.
My professional future is at stake, even though I've worked and done everything for it. We've constantly been told that we'd be able to stay in Quebec because they need qualified French-speaking immigrants. And now they tell us that's no longer possible. There's just a lack of understanding.
The government's decision not only suspends the graduate component of the Quebec Exchange Program, but also the regular skilled worker program. The aim, according to the minister responsible, is to control and better anticipate the province's immigration needs.
There are two objectives: to ensure that 2025 is a controlled year and that we have around 64,000 people. If we hadn't taken this courageous decision, we could have come close to 70,000 permanent immigrants. And that's far too many for our capacity. And secondly, this gives us the room to have a frank but also honest discussion about the 2026 plan. We need to do that.
The government says the freeze on the programs in question will be enforced until the end of June 2025 at the latest. But a number of student and work visas approved under these immigration schemes are set to expire in the coming weeks.
When we came to Quebec, when we came to Canada, we had no idea that one day we would have to go out into the streets and ask the government to keep its promises.
The association Le Québec C'est nous aussi has launched a social media campaign accusing the authorities of having stepped up immigration efforts, particularly in French-speaking countries, only to backtrack.
It's a freeze on the two biggest economic immigration programs in Quebec. At the moment, we're trying to document and show the government the impact these policies have on people already living here. Then we'll work with both the government and the opposition in preparation for the spring 2025 discussions on immigration to try and not only bring back these programs, but also ensure that people already living in Quebec can have access to permanent residency.
The association's activists are hoping to attain a suspension or even a reversal of the government's decision, with the support of the parliamentary opposition, the Quebec Liberal Party.
It's the perfect recipe for immigration failure in Quebec. No planning. It's a blatant lack of respect for Quebec businesses.
According to immigration associations and lawyers, some who've already been impacted by the suspension of the programs have already begun moving to other Canadian provinces, where they hope to gain permanent residence by finding work. This former UN Special Rapporteur on the human rights of migrants says that now students and workers who've been displaced are a useful bargaining chip during election time, when the Premier of Quebec is struggling in the polls.
When it comes to human rights, immigrants should be treated equally on all rights except two: the right to enter the country and the right to vote and be elected, which are reserved for citizens. But all the others should be upheld equally. But that's not the case because they don't vote, and so politicians can completely ignore what they experience. There is no reality check. We never ask immigrants if it's working for them. We always ask the electorate if they are happy with immigrants. If they're happy, we carry on. And if they're not happy, we cut the number of immigrants. And that's a tragic lack of planning and governance.
Quebec is promising a multi-year immigration plan in the coming months.
Immigration, let's talk about it.
On the 24th of October, Justin Trudeau's federal government also announced that it would reduce its permanent immigration intake targets by around 20% from next year.